welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here to go over my least liked worst books of the year. So in order to talk about my worst books of the year, I'm gonna drink. My nails are really long, so I'm gonna use an espresso spoon to open this and hopefully nothing goes wrong. Okay. Cheers, friends. So today I'm only really going to talk about 9 books. These are the 9 books that give me the ick.
Hello, the beer must have gotten to me. It's only 7 books, not 9. It will slowly become apparent. I don't know where I pulled out 2 extra books, but just remember that this list is 7. Okay, bye.
Could I have made it an even 10? Sure. But that just felt wrong. It just felt wrong to me. These are the 9 books that physically, vehemently, and viscerally make me upset. So let's get into it. Before we start, the usual give or take dander. If you like these books, I think nothing less of you except for one. And don't take it personally. If you like these books, I understand. And I don't really care to argue about it. I just did not enjoy these books. It's fine. We can still be friends. We don't have to discuss it any further than that. I'm just gonna say that I have no idea where these books are. Some of them, I have put them in like an unhaul bag and I don't wanna look at them. So the first book we're going to talk about is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I did this for my friend Lucy over at Looney Lucy and I did it for her book club. I knew going in that I probably wasn't going to enjoy this. Did I have big hopes? Sure, I did. But me and Laini Taylor, we just don't get along. I really did not like the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. I read the entire thing. I knew that I probably wasn't going to enjoy this. Strange the Dreamer follows a man named Laszlo Strange who seems to be the only person in the world that knows about the lost city of Weep. He was told stories this as a youth, but one day it seems like the city of Weep has disappeared from everybody's knowledge. However, that premise really only stands true in the first chapter, because then the people from the city of Weep come down. Sorry to spoil you, but very wrong synopsis in my opinion. So listen, I can totally see why people like this book. Laini Taylor definitely has this whimsical and magical writing that appeals to a lot of people. It's the proof is in the pudding. People really enjoy her books. I am not one of those people. And I don't think I will ever be one of those people. And me and Laini Taylor just need to part ways as of this moment. In my opinion, besides Laini Taylor's magical writing style, I find Taylor takes a long time to develop her plots, and the overall length of her books comes from her incessant need to describe everything. I find this really pulls away from her plots, and I think that this was extremely obvious in Strange the Dreamer, and I think partly that could be because I've now read 4 books from Laini Taylor, so I point it out right away. But this book really only feels like it's advancing in the last 100 pages of the novel. And while it's interesting, I don't really feel like it makes up for the previous 400 pages of the book. I also find that within the last 100 pages, everything is revealed at once, and therefore everything feels lackluster and predictable because of that. Another gripe I had with this book, and another gripe I have with Laini Taylor in general, is how she writes romance and how the romance was included in this book. It's very insta-lovey. Their age difference really bothered me for how intense the relationship is. And I also find that this is the real plot of the novel. That love story is the actual plot of the novel, and the part about Laszlo discovering the city of Weep and blah, 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 and all that bullshit is kind of the background plot to this romantic endeavor. And because I hate this romance, I could not enjoy this book. The only saving grace was really the character named Mina, but not enough for me to continue the series. Not enough for us as a book club to even do a live show. It has to be up there. Definitely didn't like it. Will not be reading from Laini Taylor again. Sorry if you love her. just not for me. Coming in the 8th place is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by JUNO DAWSON. I really wanted to like this book. The story is basically about a group of childhood friends who are all witches, and some of them work for Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is like the coven of witches that works for the British government. What ends up happening is that they discover a child could be the cause of an apocalypse or the end of the world. So the witches kind of come together to find this child and figure out what they can do to kind of stop the apocalypse from coming about. Honestly, I really did not enjoy this book at all, and a lot of that comes from JUNO DAWSON's writing. I think the political stance that the book takes and the direct like fuck you to J.K. Rowling is evident. I think it's a strong stance, and I want to support the book because of that. I did want to enjoy the book because of that. And that warranted giving the novel more than just 1 star. Unfortunately though, like I said, I absolutely hated JUNO DAWSON's writing, and I could not find myself or bring myself to enjoy this book at all. I had a feeling from the first couple of pages that this wasn't going to be the book for me, but I wanted to push through because again, the premise and the political stance that this book takes sounded so interesting to me. Also, and I'm sure that this is on purpose, done on purpose by JUNO DAWSON, but the novel was just so campy and so cliche. The constant references to like 90s pop culture and the Spice Girls was just making me like roll my eyes for how ingrained in like millennial culture it was trying to be. I did really enjoy the growth of Theo in the novel and how she comes into her own person and where that story goes, but she was probably the only character that I really enjoyed. Everyone else was super boring. I'm really sad that I didn't like this book because again, the political stance, Theo's journey, all of that was done well, or done in a way that at least made me enjoy it enough to finish the book. But this is the first from JUNO DAWSON, and I am still looking forward to reading from her books in the future, but I will definitely be less excited for them just because I know that me and her writing don't get along. And as we saw with Laini Taylor, sometimes writing is a really big focal point for me, and if I don't enjoy the writing, I might not enjoy the book. In 7th place, we had one of the books I needed to read before I turned 30, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I will link that video up above. It was a giant TBR that I wanted to read this year. The Alchemist was a part of it, mainly because, not because it interested me. I never wanted to read this book, but I put it on that TBR because a lot of people were like, this is a book you have to read before your 30s. When you look up books that you need to read before you turn 30, it's a lot of like self-reflection books, self-help books, which are not usually my jive, but I made it an effort this year to kind of put some on the list, and this was one of them. But it's basically a story of a young shepherd boy named Santiago who yearns for travel, and he starts to travel to distant lands that he would have never visited before. And Santiago kind of learns like life lessons and yada yada yada. I don't really have much to criticize on the book. It's extremely short. I don't feel like it was doing much. I didn't like viscerally hate this book, but I definitely found it to be boring. I definitely did not find it to be that profound. I don't see what it really does. Like, I guess it's teaching you to like explore and like be your own person. But like, I think just a trip to therapy or reading better books would give you the same message. And also this book really goes into like personal legends and like how everything has a personal legend and everybody has a journey and everybody has this and that. But it's just funny how the only female character in the book is the only one that doesn't have a personal legend, and that even rocks have personal legends in this book. And why am I, a 29-year-old female reader, reading about a book that doesn't assign the same system of magic or rule system in the book to the only woman in the novel? Very strange. Did not like it. Don't recommend, to be honest. But that's it. That's all I could say. It really was nothing. I don't know what number we're at, but I think it's number 5, and that is for KAFKA on the Shore by Haruki Murakami, my frenemy. If you watched the video that I read this in, which was Could We Trust RM? I think we can, to answer that question, but not for this book. Not for this book. He is very wrong for this. Haruki Murakami is an interesting authorial figure because his books are either some of my favorites or some of my most hated books of all time. And with Haruki, there's really no in between with him because he has an incessant fascination with tits. And sometimes it's a little uncomfortable. So Kafka on the Shore is basically this delve into the metaphysical reality and looking into one's own thought process and how we see the world. And it's very much Haruki Murakami's jive. Like, he does write about this type of topic a lot. It essentially follows a teenage boy named Kafka who runs from his hometown because he essentially received a kind of like Oedipus complexy type of prophecy, and he kind of runs into like weird people and talking cats. It's a journey in and of its own. But not only was this one of the worst books I read this year, it was a huge disappointment for me because everybody really liked Kafka on the Shore. And I thought that out of all the Haruki Murakami books I was going to read, this one might have been a successful one. The writing, as expected, was beautiful. It's the reason that I pick up Haruki Murakami. Murakami has a way with words. They are very over the top, very flowery. And if it works for you, you can really get a lot from his books. Murakami also loves integrating, diving in, talking about weird sexual fantasies between young men and sometimes even younger or even older women. And sometimes these sexual endeavors really feel like they don't belong in the book at all. I do want to make the argument that I do believe that sex can be used as a way to further a philosophical point or an idea in a novel, especially when we're looking at invoking a feeling in a character based on like exploration or movement of their time on Earth. And while I feel like these moments of sexual encounters in the book do move with Kafka's growth in the novel, they just continue to feel gratuitous and unnecessary, especially considering the fact that he is a 15-year-old boy who is engaging in sexual activities with a 50-year-old woman who may or may not be his mother. We don't know. We know that there's this Oedipus complex type of situation happening. And then he also sexually assaults a 20-year-old woman. It happened in a dream though, so that's okay, I guess. I totally get that this is supposed to mirror a Greek tragedy in both its forms and its subject matter, but I still stand by my point that I think it's grossly unnecessary. Like, make the character older if we needed to talk about like incestuous sexual relationships if we needed to. I don't understand why he was 15. As well, there's another huge trigger warning in the book for animal mutilation. That was completely unnecessary. I don't even know why it was in there. It didn't make sense. It happened one time randomly, had nothing to do with the plot of the novel. So this book really leaves you to take what you want from it. And while I often do enjoy this kind of pretentiousness that comes from Murakami, that comes from other writers who write like him, this was just not it. It left a really, really bad taste in my mouth. I understand that people can take profound messages from this novel, but I will not. And that's it. In fourth place, we have Another Crime to Literature, Another Crime to Lucy's Book Club, A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I never want to think about this book again once I'm done talking about it. So A Discovery of Witches is kind of like a Twilight for adults in a way. It basically follows this young woman named Diana Bishop who is currently doing her PhD or her master's or something in magic or magic symbols. No, she's actually doing it in alchemy, because I actually thought that that was cool. So she was doing it in alchemy. Does it come up later on ever again? No. But it was cool in the beginning to read about her writing her dissertation on alchemy. What ends up happening is that she finds this book in the library that she's not supposed to find, and it kind of opens up her knowledge of the world of the paranormal. And at the same time that she opens this book, this vampire man named Matthew comes in, and he's like half protecting her, half trying to get the book. But then obviously they fall in love after the course of 3 days, and the story takes off from there. I do want to say that if you enjoy this book, I completely understand, because like I said, the premise of the novel is good. If you're closing your brain and just reading this for the romance, just reading it for escapism, I completely get how this could be a fun romp. I would have also been very, very, very down to explore the novel further with her dissertation in alchemy, how it all comes together. I would have been happy with the book that I was imagining it was going to be. The problem with this book is that it has a super interesting premise that completely falls flat in its execution. This book is poorly written, poorly plotted out. It was a complete chore to read. And this is mainly due to the fact that the characters were so extremely stupid and boring. They are all as interesting as my brain when I awaken in the morning just a shell of possibilities. Of course, Diana is a witch who doesn't know she's a witch or doesn't want to know for 300 fucking pages. And her powers obviously make her the most powerful witch in the universe through time and space. And obviously Matthew the vampire is meant to be her soulmate and her husband. And they've been hiding her from Matthew this whole time. And like, I'm not even gonna talk about the relationship. It was the dumbest thing I've ever read. They did not act like 30-year-olds. They acted like 12-year-olds. And if I was 12, I would have eaten this up. As an almost 30-year-old woman, reading about another almost 30-year-old woman, acting and behaving this way, everything in this book is really just a surface of what it could be. And I obviously did not enjoy it. And that's all I'm gonna say. Drum roll, please, everyone. Let's take another sip of the beer while you guys guess what my first 2 worst books of the year are. There's one really big and important one that I have not mentioned yet that I will dive into. The second book on the list of books that bothered me the most this year is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is a crime to my English degree. This is a crime to every essay I have ever written, and I wish that I could not read after reading this book. This is the second book in Sarah J. Maas's Crescent City series. Basically follows a young half-fae woman named Bryce Quaylen who is kind of swept up into a murder mystery in the first book to kind of discover what's going on behind the scenes between the faes, the werewolves, and all the paranormal creatures. It's an urban fantasy, very different from what Sarah J. Maas has done before. I did not particularly vastly enjoy the first book, but I enjoyed it enough to read the second book, and that was my mistake. I don't really have much to say on this book because my review is basically please don't hate me, because I know that Sarah J. Maas is a really beloved author, but I think that that is becoming her detriment. A problem that I've had with Sarah J. Maas for a while, and I kind of went into this with like blinders because I did not want to see what I knew, is that Sarah J. Maas is missing an editor. I think people don't edit her books anymore, and it was very obvious in Kingdom of Ash, which is the finale of the Throne of Glass series. I think this one is worse. I think this one is more of a crime. Basically, I find Sarah Janet adds a lot of plot points to the novel that don't really deserve to be there. Again, very obvious in this one. There's a lot of Deus Ex Machina type of tropes that Sarah J. Maas uses, where a kind of mythical featured being comes in and like just saves the day. Like all the plans and everything that they've done don't really make sense. In this book, Bryce was supposed to receive a lot of consequences for her actions, and she's kind of like whisked away. Like she doesn't really, like nothing in this book made sense. Another thing Sarah does is create these plot points, create these plans within her characters. We are following those characters' minds, okay? We are in their heads. Why do we not know when things happen? There was a specific plot point in this book that led but fuck nowhere. While we're still following Bryce's perspective, she does something completely behind the scenes, and we're just shocked with everybody else, but it's like we're following her. I don't understand why this major thing that was supposedly so important was happening that we didn't know. And I think Sarah Janet knew. I think Sarah, this is my theory, I think Sarah didn't know what to do with that plot point. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to create the entire Maasverse, and I'm going to create a mythos around all of my books. I want to distract people from what I did here. I want to distract people from this atrocious novel that in the last sentence of the book, I'm going to give people like Kelsey, her stupid little brain that loves the Court of Thorns and Roses series, something to continue reading my books. And to that I say, you are a genius, Sarah J. Maas, but also I really hated this book. And finally, the last book on this list, my most hated book. This is the one book I feel like if you like this book or this series, we square up. We are gonna fight because I cannot comprehend how you can read the words that have been written on these pages, look me in the eyeballs, and tell me that you enjoy what was being written here. I just can't comprehend it. And that is for Door of Bruises by Sierra Simone. It is the 4th book in the Thornchapel series. I did this to myself. I rated the first Thornchapel book, A Lesson in Thorns, 4 stars. Loved it. I was like, this is going to be my absolute shit. Read the second book. Quickly and promptly gave that a 2 stars. Read the third book, Waiting for Something to Change, 2 stars. I decided, fuck it. I'm just gonna read the 4th book. I just wanna know how this incessant nonsense ends. 1 star. It wasn't beneficial. I did this to myself. I and I just have to accept it. And that, my friends, is why I am drinking today. The Thorn Chapel series follows a group of, how many are they? 5 friends? 6? One of those numbers. And basically their parents used to come together every year at the Thorn Chapel establishment and participate in what seems like sex rituals. Cut to maybe 10 to 15 years later, and the now adult children of those parents also meet at Thorn Chapel and soon discover that there are these like ritualistic stuff that's happening. And basically each book kind of follows a seasonal ritual in a way. Sounds freaking fantastic. It sounds like the perfect book for me because it had smut, it had polyamory, it had a bisexual lead character, multiple bisexual characters, in fact. It had literally everything I could want. Cult-like stuff, love that shit. I love that shit. But no, Sarah Simone had to include something so horrible in these stories. I genuinely think that people should know about it because I genuinely think it's nasty as fuck. I won't say it just in case people are like, is this spoiler? Fine. But I think it's horrible. So I think I was the most upset about this installment over the second one and the third one. And that is because I was actually enjoying how the mythical aspects were wrapping up, how we were explaining all these ritualistic things in the novel. And I even thought we were gonna get a solution to the thing that shall not be named. But all Sierra Simone did, all this woman did, was drag me for 500 pages only to further dig her nails into the thing that shall not be named. And I wish I could talk about it. And if you would know, you would know. Oh, and also the female perspective that I absolutely adored, that I absolutely was rooting for, did not mean fuck all, was in fact pushed aside to be a side character in her own polyamorous relationship to then later completely disappear into like a mirror in the wall. And the mystery, the final chapter, the mystery of this entire Thorn Chapel mansion, useless when we look at what happened and what the consequences are, which are none. I still cannot believe that we didn't have a legit ending to a lot of the things in this book, but particularly the thing that shall not be named. I'm disgusted. I'm appalled. Will I read from Sierra Simone, however, in the future? That's it. Those are all of the books I hated this year. But of course, like I said, if you love them, please, it's fine. We can still be friends. I hope I don't need to say this again in the comments. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your worst book of the year was. Let me know if you guessed what my worst books of the year were. I think I was pretty vocal about my feelings this year. But let me know. Let's start off 2022 on a solid note. In my next video, we will be going over my best books of the year. I also will have a video coming out of my birthday vlog. I'm starting finish a series with me this year. So a lot of good stuff is coming, even though there are sometimes books that I really don't enjoy. If you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video and I'm hoping that you don't hate me, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. I tell you every time, but it does wonders for my channel and makes me feel really special and good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye!